The deficit could reach as high as $1 trillion, according to the parliamentary budget officer, who will join us in a minute after all the spending on these badly needed COVID-19 relief programs. But should the Prime Minister release a budget or a fiscal update so Canadians know exactly how much money has been spent so far? And are people who don't need any financial help taking advantage of the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit? Conservative leader Andrew Scheer joins us with some of his views on all this. Good to see you, sir, and I hope you and your family are doing well. You have repeatedly suggested that the Liberal government has failed to help Canadians, but there are over 7.5 million Canadians who are using the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, millions more using the wage subsidy. And by the way, the Prime Minister on Friday extended the wage subsidy till August, and he says he's going to open up eligibility. So what are they missing?
Well, they're letting so many Canadians down. It is true that there are millions of people who are accessing this benefit. Conservatives supported these types of emergency benefits that will see people through this crisis. But there are so many barriers to people being able to work or to receive any number of the benefits that they've announced. For example, if you work for a store that is offering you some shifts and you earn $1 more than $1,000, you lose the entire benefit. Small business owners who don't have a business bank account aren't eligible for the loans. If they don't have a CRA payroll number, they can't access the wage subsidy. So we understand that back in March, many of these programs were designed quickly. What we're saying here is we're in the middle of May now. We've got to be removing some of these barriers to get help to people.
So you want the programs to be more flexible so more people can make money. What do you make of the fact that on Friday the Prime Minister said, look, we will explore changing the eligibility criteria for the wage subsidy? It used to be, you needed 30% loss of wages. Now he says maybe that's too high a barrier. What do you say to that?
Well, it's frustrating that it's taking this long, and people are going through these hardships in real time. For example, the rental subsidy, the rental benefit that they offered businesses was only eligible if you've experienced a 70% decline in revenue. There are so many businesses that have adapted, that are delivering products or doing store pickups, so they're still earning some revenue, and they're actually being told that they would be better off if they closed their doors entirely. We don't want these programs to have barriers to people finding a way to continue to provide goods and services and keep people employed. So we do want to see more flexibility built in.
On one hand, your finance critic, are criticizing the government for spending too much, for building up the deficit. There's all this points about the $1 trillion debt. On the other hand, you're just telling me you want to expand the programs, make people more eligible. That will cost more money. So are you going to pick a lane here? Do you want to spend less on the programs and fight the deficit, or spend more on the programs and not worry so much about the deficit?
I think there are two completely different things here. First of all, we have long warned this government that their massive deficits, while times were good, were leaving us in a very weakened position. We want the government to stop wasteful spending. We were highlighting their $50 million to MasterCard, there are millions of dollars to Loblaws for fridges. There was all kinds of wasteful spending going on that left Canada more vulnerable during this pandemic. As it relates to helping people get through this, we recognize that so many people are going through incredible hardship through no fault of their own, and we do believe that it's appropriate for government in a temporary, timely way to help with that. So that's why we've supported these programs with sunset clauses to make sure that as things return back to normal, that these don't become permanent programs that are that will have to be paid for.
Right, that's fair. They may not be permanent, but you're saying expand the criteria, let more people go, spend them, make sure people don't get kicked off them, and then you're hammering them on the deficit. Do you appreciate that? The two. I mean, it's hard to have one without the other.
No, I think we both know that there is normal spending that governments do on long-term basis, and then there is a reaction to a pandemic. And we are being very clear that as it relates to the government's normal fiscal process, they've been incredibly irresponsible. In addition, we're very critical of the fact that this government is sending out hundreds of thousands of checks to people who don't deserve this, the CRB, who don't qualify for it. We're hearing reports from people saying that this benefit might be going to people in prison. We're being told by public servants they've been told to ignore red flags as it relates to fraudulent cases. So even as we're trying to get help out the door to get people through a pandemic, you still need to have some fiscal responsibility.
Okay, but let me talk about that, because you've quoted this number, 200,000 people who have defrauded. I've asked the government. I just had Carla Qualter on. They say they don't have that number. They say they have red flag people. There was a memo that went out not to ignore the red flags, but to pursue them afterwards. So I'm just trying to figure this out. First of all, where did you get the 200,000 number? Because I can't confirm that with the government. And they're saying, look, we'll catch these guys at the back end, but with almost 7.5 million people who have received payment in the last 8 weeks, is Mr. Scheer suggesting, this is what they're asking, delay the payments to almost 8 million people to protect what your number would be, 0.02% of potential fraudsters?
Well, first of all, it's not surprising it's difficult to get a number out of this government. This government is famous for not being open and transparent. And what Justin Trudeau is trying to do is present a false dichotomy. No one is suggesting that we delay getting help out to people who need it. But if you've got a directive going to public servants saying, don't pursue red flags, don't look at cases that are obviously probably fraudulent, then that defies common sense. If it is in the order of 100,000 or more, you multiply that by $2,000 per month, you're very quickly getting into hundreds of millions of dollars. And if Justin Trudeau thinks that he's going to get that back from people who claimed it fraudulently, I think he's being naively optimistic there.
Okay, but I appreciate that. I'm just trying to. I looked into this. No one wants to condone fraud. The CRA says on any program they expect about 1% fraud. This would be about 0.02. I'm with you. It may go up if those are the average numbers. But you do have to get your SIN number. There is some front-end screening. Maybe it's not enough. Do you think there should be more front-end screening?
Well, we just think that when you've got public servants saying that they are looking at cases and applications and there are red flags going off, that there are people who have made fraudulent claims in the past applying for this, we just think that they should be allowed to pursue that. At the very least, we don't believe that will impact the ability for people who need it, who qualify for it, from getting their benefits. And this is what this government has done from the get-go. They say, any criticism of their plan, and they try to conjure up images that people are opposed to helping people. We want these programs to be accessible. We want people who deserve them, who qualify for them, to get the help they need. We just don't accept that it's impossible to do it properly. And that's what Mr. Trudeau would have you believe, that it's just impossible to design these programs with safeguards around them. And the same is true as it relates to fixing the gaps in their programs that are letting so many people down. We say that the CERB is too rigid. It's putting in barriers to people working. We say that the rental program isn't expansive enough. We say that the wage subsidy isn't helping enough people get on board. And they say, well, it was too important to get the money out the door back in March. Say, okay, well, this is May now, Evan.
I get it, but I mean, you got to admit, the numbers are massive, sir. I mean, you've got 7.5 million people have received the CERB. 13.5 million applications, because you have to process them, have been processed. And over $35 billion is out the door in 2 months. So there is a fire hose of cash out, and that leads me to my next question. Do you think the government owes the Canadian people a fiscal update now?
I believe that it's incumbent upon the government to put out some kind of an economic update. I think all Canadians understand that this pandemic has certainly changed the dynamic and upset any plans that may have originally been proposed. But I think before the House rises for the summer, before it basically will be 3 months, 2.5 months before Parliament resumes in September, we think showing Canadians what all has been spent so far with some kind of a plan, some kind of an economic update makes sense.
Two last things, because you're coming to the end of your tenure. Will you be running as an MP in the next election?
I intend to run again. It's been a distinct honor to be the Member of Parliament for Regina Capel, and I hope to be able to earn their trust again in the next election. I love my riding in Saskatchewan, and I'm looking forward to spending more time there.
Okay, you'll run again. And then can you just give us an update of something that was an election issue, your dual citizenship? Have you continued your steps to renounce your U.S. citizenship?
After making the decision to step down, knowing that I won't be Prime Minister, I discontinued that process.
Oh, why did you discontinue it, out of interest?
Well, just for personal reasons, Evan.
You don't want to tell us why you discontinued it? When did you do that?
I'd have to go back and check.
All right, I got to leave it there. Hey, Mr. Scheer, always good to have you on the program, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Evan.
That's Andrew Scheer, leader of the official opposition.